Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I'm Hook'em Horn 7 here with Husker Fan 26. This is episode 2 of H&H. We thought we'd kind of do a recruiting preview, kind of look at some teams, just some generalizations, look at some players, kind of touch D1A and D1AA. Talk about our Coach of the Year award winners, and then also maybe do some predictions for the real life football. So, Husker fan, how are you doing today?
I could be better if my Huskers were playing in the Big Ten title tomorrow, but could be worse.
They finished pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with how they finished out the year. I think they did all right.
Considering the start, I would have to agree with you.
Uh, yeah, well, maybe in a couple years we'll see. Frost's supposed to be pretty good. Anyway, so let's just start right in here. First thing I want to kind of just say is, this is Husker fan and I's only second time doing this, so we're pretty new at this still. I did want to invite if anyone wants to, participate and do media for Wilkinson as well. We'd love to have it. This world at one point had like 3 podcasts, a website, blogs, Twitter. We had a lot going on, and the world was thriving. So it'd be great to get at least somewhat back on that. So if anyone's interested, you can always shoot us a site mail, or just start doing it yourself. We're definitely not like the leaders of this or anything like that. Anyway, let's dive in real quick and just scope out who won Coach of the Year for season 147 here in Wilkinson. Um, for D1, it was Z32 Fanatic at Alabama. He was the D1 national champion. For D1AA, you had Jay Hunters out of Northern Iowa. He was also the D1AA national champion. And then for D2, you had War Eagle 72 out of Chadron State, who had a fantastic year. Husker fan, I don't know if you, I'm sure you voted. I don't know who you voted for or anything like that. But I actually like all these winners. I know a lot of people tend to kind of complain that we maybe vote for the national champion a lot, but it really is pretty hard to win a national championship here in what if sports, especially Wilkinson and in Chadron State. He didn't win it, but the improvement on his team was fantastic. Do you have any thoughts on the winners or anyone you think maybe was more deserving?
Well, the main thing is Chadron State. I went there for undergrad, so they were my number one vote. Then the rest of them, I don't even remember who I exactly voted for as my number one, but I don't think it was the guys who won the national title. I looked at, some other guys. They already have enough silverware in the cabinet with the national titles. So I figured, let me try and look at someone else. It was still, impressive what they managed to do winning the national titles.
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of vote that way too. I tend to not necessarily vote for the national champion just because I feel like they do, like you said, they already got enough recognition. Anyway, let's kind of start diving into recruiting here. We're going to start at the Division 1A level. We're going to talk about a couple teams um, near the top and maybe some of the top prospects for the country. Husker fan, you're up at D1A, so you're scouting a lot of those players, scoping out what's out there and where they're at and who might go for them. And so let's kick off and kind of get your thoughts on D1 recruiting.
So for D1 recruiting, we gotta get the best guys that are around you. It's more difficult to go long distance in Will because the world is populated and everyone is everywhere. So, and everybody knows quarterback carries your team. You have a good quarterback, there's a high probability that you win more games than you lose. So starting off with the quarterbacks, I looked at, based off my rankings and what I consider are important things when looking for a quarterback. My guys, I came up with my top 3 guys in no particular order. There was Gomez out of Daytona, Florida. He's got good game instinct, technique, work ethic, and GPA, so he should be able to pick up information IQs pretty quick. Same thing with Holland out of Orlando in Florida. Similar thing, game instinct, technique, and GPA. Work ethic was under 40, if I remember correctly, which is, a bit on the low side, but I'm sure with Brett sharing, he should be all right when he becomes a redshirt senior. And then I also had Adams out of Ashland, Virginia. Same thing with Gomez, same sort of kind of characteristics. So with the Florida guys, I would expect to be a battle for both of them by all the 3 elites out in Florida. And out of all those guys battling, I think maybe FSU might be at a disadvantage because the ACC.
They're kind of in a cluster there. I mean, they got those two elites around them. They got Alabama close, LSU really, if they wanted to, could hit the peninsula of Florida. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and then I also have a sleeper quarterback. He's not, your flashy guy, your top 25 according to GD guy. It's a guy named Richie out in Alabama, Irvington. Good game instinct, good technique, great work ethic, good enough GPA to the point where, with red shirt and, putting him in his underclassmen years where, just run your run plays, he might hopefully develop into something worthwhile. And all of these things, it's going to depend on what their potentials are going forward. So those are kind of like my guys that my top three guys that I think, would be worth something. And the sleeper QB, just in case, you don't have anything that first round, yeah, on no quarterbacks. Just, keep an eye out for Richie because I think most people will overlook him because, the top 25 talent.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of looked at I did top 5 or 6 so for a couple of positions and I like those two guys down in Florida as well. And then I like Adams. He was in your list. I like Perez out of Missouri. Reed out of Louisiana, I believe is where he's at. And then I had number 6, Wheeler out of Texas. So you got a lot of guys down south, it seems. I think quarterback was kind of, I don't know if you're noticing this a lot so much or maybe it's just me, but it seems like talent tends to be like similar. So like this year in particular with quarterback, I'm noticing a lot of high game instinct, but a lot of lower technique on
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
guys. And so it's like strength and game instinct. So someone who values technique a little bit more, maybe like myself, may not value certain quarterbacks as high as these. And just a disclaimer to everybody who is listening or watching, my quarterback ranking is not based on. It's kind of off of What If Sports. I don't have a system or anything like that or a formula I use. I just did a quick eye test to kind of see who I liked from there. Who do you like at running back?
Running back, there's a guy, Kim, out in Texas. The boy is quick, big, strong athlete. He's smart, so he's going to be able to pick up plays, be able to block for you if you need be. He's very elusive. He's got good hands, so it's going to be a problem coming out of the backfield. Then there's a kid Johnson out in Utah, also quick, strong, good hands, smart, elusive. Then there's Sanderson in Ohio, similar thing to the other two guys. So, most guys in GD, they run process. So you need to have a good 1-2 punch for your running back and also good wide receivers. And these three guys, for my money, they might be the top talent. Then the sleeper running back is out of North Carolina, Calhoun. Good, quick, good hands, work ethic. So he's going to be putting a lot of time in the gym to make sure that he builds up their muscles. Good GPA, pick up that playbook real quick. So I would expect that with Duke now CMAI after CJ left, they probably might be an easy pickup for the new coach at UNC, who is the reigning ACC champ. So I think he might have an eye out on Calhoun.
Yeah.
But just a heads up to him. North Carolina, I consider it an extended Tennessee type of territory.
It's definitely a good recruiting hotbed in there, but I got a guy on mine that I liked. I liked Fox. He's out there in Tennessee. Let me see if I can go find him here real quick. I
Hey,
had
why
him as
you
my
why
number 3 back here. Hey, I'm just
why
pointing out where talent's at, bro.
why are
Yeah,
you
Kevin
making the
Fox, number
sport
4.
hard?
Like my top couple guys are what I consider, I guess, maybe more pure running backs. They don't have the hands necessarily like some of the receiving backs. Um, so Fox was one of my better, just straight up pure running back types that I had. I liked Sanderson. He's out of Ohio. Smith in Pennsylvania. We talked about Fox. I also liked Rodriguez out of North Carolina. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's a guy that, as opposed to the Calhoun you were talking about. So Rodriguez might be more of a focal point for some of those teams in the area. And then I too liked Kim down near Houston. And so that should be an interesting battle down there, down in the south. See if LSU decides to maybe go all the way over there, or if they just kind of let Texas and or if Oklahoma tries to go down there, let them kind of duke it out. All right, let's take a look at wide receivers now.
Before we go to that, I think safe money is on Oklahoma going down and trying to get their hands on that running back out in Texas.
Yeah, he's number two. Going for Kim. He's got a good hands, good game instinct, good elusiveness, pretty good work ethic. Yeah, I think so too. You're probably right. But I think running back, kind of like tight or wide receiver this year, is actually not too bad. I thought both of them were actually pretty stocked with talent this year.
Well, yes, but then you don't want the other guy picking him up, and you have to face the guy for the next 4 seasons. And I think that might be the blitz is coming type of mentality. You want to have him, I will have him sit on the bench. But that's neither here nor there. Onto the wide receivers. So for me, you gotta go out to Massachusetts, pick up Alexander. The boy is quick, good hands. He's smart enough to pick up your playbook, and he's an athlete. Then there's a kid out in Georgia. I know Airwax was looking at maybe trying to come back into Wilk. UGA is open, and there's a kid out there right now, Hall, quick athlete, good hands. He's smart. Same story with Holmes out in Pennsylvania. He's got everything that you'll want in a wide receiver. But my sleeper wide receiver is Post, who's also out in Pennsylvania. He's quick, good hands, and he's elusive. So, if you're out in the Northeast and you're looking for a wide receiver that everybody might overlook, Post might be one to try and keep an eye on.
I thought Georgia was pretty loaded with. It's funny you speak of that. I think they were pretty loaded, especially in the wide receiver department this year. I actually have two of them coming out of there. I like Cook, who's in there, and then Barrera, wide receiver up near Atlanta. I like him. Franklin in Missouri, Colorado, and then who's my other guy? Oh, I think we talked about everybody else. But yeah, I think wide receivers, they're pretty talented this year. I almost couldn't cut it off at 5 or 6. I was kind of sitting there like, man, there's actually quite a few guys out there that are pretty good that are only separated by a couple of stats or a couple digits on a certain stat here and there. So I think that position there's enough talent around this year that I don't think it'll be such a big deal, or at least maybe at the top end of the board. I guess I didn't dive super deep to see what the rest of the country holds, but I think tight end's pretty stocked this year, so it should be easy to kind of find a guy you need and work around other people. Did you do tight ends?
I did look at tight ends, and for me, this is always tricky. Do you just go out and get a specialist who catches or a specialist who blocks? Some people usually try to get like, a hybrid tight end. He can block for you and he can also catch for you, which usually doesn't work out well because we are going to be losing so much more in one of those other departments. So the guys that I looked at were the best hybrids that were out there. And I looked at Gonzalez out in Florida. Florida seems to be stacked this year, and I think there might be a free fall down in Florida when recruiting starts. I also have areas out in Illinois, Graham in Georgia. Airwax, if you're listening, Georgia is pretty loaded with talent. It won't take you too long to get up and rolling, and the SEC misses you. So come back. And my sleeper tight end is, I don't know how to even say this guy's name. I don't know how they generate some of these names because I'm like, really? It's
What
G
rank is
U
he?
I. I have no idea. It's my sleeper. I don't even remember what his rank was, but it's Guidry out in South Carolina.
Oh, I would say Gidry, Ronnie Gidry in South Carolina.
It sounds about right.
Okay, yeah, he was pretty good. Things that seem like the tight ends is it's like you get a lot of guys that are 80s, well not a lot, but you get your 80s guys with stats in 80s, 90s, great speed, pretty good all around. And then it seems like it drops off unless, like you said, you're looking more for a specialist, blocking specific or receiving specific. But if you're looking for a hybrid after the top few, it seems like it always kind of drops off to upper 70s, maybe some 80s on the tight end front. So always an interesting decision on where people do or what people do with their tight ends and what they're going for. But like you said, I think the fact that people get blocking tight ends and receiving tight ends, or maybe hybrids. It kind of helps free up. Someone might be able to go get, like, I don't know, the number 30th ranked tight end because he's just strictly for blocking. You know what I mean? But they'll get him cheap. So,
Yep.
right. And did you do? You didn't do lineman, right?
No, I didn't. I didn't look at the guys in the trenches. I figured TD said something a while ago that I've taken to heart that you shouldn't be battling for the linemen because they are more than enough out there, and all you gotta worry about is trying to get someone who is high potential and a good work ethic, and they'll develop quickly enough to the point where you will be able to count on them down the road.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I didn't do lineman either. I kind of focused more on skill positions, I guess. So let's jump then. Did you do defensive side of the ball at all, or
I only looked at linebackers. I didn't pay too
okay?
much attention to the DBs.
Okay, go ahead with your linebackers then.
So for my linebackers, I have Dryer in Alabama, quick, good strength. You're smart enough to be able to pick up the playbook, and you won't let anybody by because he's a good tackler. Which is also true for all the remaining two linebackers that I have on my list. I have Howard in Illinois, and I have Williams out in California. And there's decent enough talent in California that I think it'll be interesting to see how the new coach at UCLA and the Trojans go at it for the talent that is in SoCal and in Illinois. I think there's a Vikes is at DePaul. I wonder if he will be able to try and keep all the local talent, all the Illinois talent local, or will you lose out to his neighbors in Minnie and at Wisconsin?
Yeah, that area is always interesting there, that Midwest. I'm obviously pretty familiar with it there in Indiana. I'm actually looking at the current coaches map. There's kind of a weird void we have basically through all of Illinois, all of Arkansas, and obviously there's only one team in Missouri. So that whole area, pretty much from Illinois down to even northern Mississippi, as far as like a straight line, is pretty open. You got some teams in Tennessee, obviously yourself included in that, but it's actually pretty open there in the Midwest, so that will make things interesting. For me, I like Dwyer. He was my number one. My number two was Hobart in Indiana. Jones, number three, down there in SoCal. Huff near LA. He was my number four. Gardner, who's kind of the middle California there. He was my number five, and then after that, I have a guy out of Georgia. His name is Smith. So talent seems to be spread all around there, and I did notice with like linebackers, a lot of good game instinct this year. It seemed like in tackling, strength was hit or miss as it tends to be, and it seemed like not a lot of speed. Seemed like there was a lot more maybe inside linebacker style guys this year, at least just from the glance I got. So we'll see how that thing shakes out, and then you didn't do DBs at all.
I didn't even bother to look at DBs. None of these guys were good enough for me to even look at, though I think I need DBs
Yeah,
for this upcoming season.
I thought DB was actually relatively stacked as well this year. My number one I had was Baxter. He's in looks like Indiana or yeah Indiana. I had Jones next. He's clear up in Maine, so Boston College probably likely gets him since he's out there all by himself. They're Duran in Philadelphia, Pritchard in Cleveland, Ohio, or near Cleveland, Ohio, and then the last one was Barnes that I liked in Missouri. And again, my rankings are not anything formal. So you can tear them up as much as you want to. They're just kind of me doing an eye test on some guys. I kind of tried to pick guys with some good game instinct, tackling, decent hands, and obviously athleticism is a little bit higher priority for me than it has been in the past. But I think DB is pretty loaded position this year. Um, Now let's talk some teams, Coach. Who are some teams that you're kind of maybe looking at, seeing how they do it in recruiting this year?
So on the recruiting trail, I think it's going to be the same suspects, year in, year out that we have seen. You expect Oklahoma and Blitz to be going after the top talent, be it in Oklahoma, in Arkansas, or down in Texas. They might venture up north to see if there are any guys worth taking up north. And you would expect Texas and A&M to go at it. I think Penn State is going to try and keep a hold of everybody in Pennsylvania and maybe venture out into New Jersey and surrounding areas. I know the coach at Rutgers was saying that there isn't the quarterback worth anything in the Northeast. So you might see some of those guys going either long distance or not getting any quarterbacks at all this year, which will probably leave them up with a little bit more money to spend on a few guys who are for skill positions. I think some of the new coaches might find this season a little bit more difficult because I think there was that much more movement across, across the D1AA level. So there might be a few coaches who might be bringing on a few walk-ons. Hopefully, I won't be one of them.
Well, it's weird to hear the Northeast didn't have talent, right? I mean, we're pretty used to that area of the country being stacked. That's why there's so many teams up there. They're all close together. There's always almost talent. Not that I doubt Paul or anybody by that means. It obvious, but it's just weird to hear that. But I also feel like the talent. I've expressed this before a long time back that I think talent also cycles a little bit too. Where maybe one year the South is pretty heavy on all the talent, and then the next year it moves out west, and then it kind of is maybe spread out everywhere, and then so I think the way it generates, you kind of sometimes just get the short end of the straw on that. Some teams that I'm going to keep an eye on. For me, it's Army and Navy, both there in the Sun Belt. I think with no coach at Maryland, both these guys now been at their team or are at their team now 3 or more years. Um, you need somebody on the other side of that conference to compete with Macbeth, and those are, you know, arguably probably the best mid majors in terms of a recruiting area that there is. And just having another BCS team out of the picture, I think, helps a little bit. The Northeast isn't is fairly crowded, but it's not terrible. There's still some holes in there, and then save your money, go out to the Virginia, South Carolina, that kind of area. Maybe pick off in the Midwest if you can. I also think Houston is interesting with Nitros. We all know Nitros, what he's done. Fantastic coach. He recruits well. He's even expressed that he's not so sure about D1 as much as the other levels. I don't know if that necessarily comes to recruiting or not, but I think it'll be interesting to keep an eye on him, see what he does in his first year down there. I'm in the Lone Star State trying to work his way around those BCS schools, the elites. And he just got another coach in there at Rice, so right on his doorstep. So that'll make things even more interesting. And then I also the WAC as a whole. We all know that west side of the country can be pretty barren at times, and if they're all trying to go for the same guys, especially with I think there's like 8 or something like that in the WAC now. That's a lot of mid majors trying to scrounge up some scraps in a fairly barren area of the country. So something to keep your eye on there. You got anything else for D1 or anybody else you want to talk about or look at?
Well, the guys that I had for my title contenders, I only really looked at 3 guys who I thought we had a real decent shot at it all, and I had Texas. That should be a given, decent talent coming back, great coach. And on in my notes, I have them as having 3 big games. There's the UCLA one. I think it's like either week 2 or the first
Yep,
week.
looks like week 2.
And then I think week 5 they have LSU.
Yep.
And then obviously the game against Oklahoma. That is always a big thing. And this is nothing against everybody else that they play, but I think in all the rest of their games they should be heavily favored in those. And then you have the Trojans. Year in, year out, safe money is always on them. Again, they have great talent coming back. Schedule, they have like 5 big games or so, which will help with their strength of schedule. And the coach, they know how to recruit and they know how to game plan. And a guy who I think most people wouldn't even, or maybe now they're paying a little bit more attention because he has made it to the national title twice in the last 3 seasons or so. Paul in Rutgers. Paul knows what he's doing with regards to recruiting, so I expect him to keep the talent level high. He's a great game planner. His schedule is always going to be good for a strength of schedule because you have everybody in the Big East and his out of conference games. They should be good enough games to try and help him with that. I think he might be able to make it in even with one loss. So I think safe money might be on him making it back, and I think he might be taking on Texas this time around.
Yeah, that'd be a good matchup. I'm surprised you didn't throw Daryl Jones in there as a big game for Texas, considering that was the only team to beat him last year.
I know, but then he switched teams, went from Texas Tech to Colorado, and usually in the first season, for me, I don't expect that much from the new coaches when they pick up new teams, even if they were formerly human coach teams. I usually don't expect too much from them. New system, new players, trying to figure things out. I know it might be the same playbook and everything else, but I rarely expect a whole lot from first year coaches.
Well, and he's gonna. I don't know if he's gonna stick with it. I'd imagine he probably transitions out of it. But right now they're set up for the shotgun. No running backs on the roster. So maybe going through some change there, and we all know that that can take some time.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's jump to D1AA. For this, we're not going to touch on it too much, just because D1AA you're dealing with vision and all sorts of kind of different things like that. So we can't like really assess, top talent, because who I can see at D1AA is not the same as some of these other guys who are higher up or lower down, or lower vision than I have. So let's take a look at maybe who you think are some title contenders then, Coach, and kind of maybe what do you think they're going to do in recruiting or in the season, and go from there.
Again, I have three title contenders. I have you and I going back at it. I mean, they are the defending. They will be going in as the defending national champs. So great coach, same coach, good enough talent coming back, and I'm sure they will be able to pick up some better talent with the vision that they only have there. St. Mary's, I think this might be the year where they make it all the way. I think they lost in the semifinal this past season, so I have faith in the coach and the talent that he has coming back. They should be able to, at least make it to the big dance. And Georgetown, the coach is always sure money. If you're putting money on anyone making a deep run or making some noise in the playoffs, it has to be the coach at Georgetown. We have seen what he has been able to do before, so I fully expect that this might be the year where he finally, gets back to the big dance and maybe, win it.
He's definitely been recruiting very consistently there. I think he's had number two class every year he's been there, so it kind of trumps that whole vision thing a little bit. One thing that I find interesting, I too have actually had all three of those as my title contenders. I did throw Texas Southern on there again, just because I think the talent Nitros left there is still pretty solid. I know Mike C. I've coached against him quite a bit, and he's a pretty solid coach. I think he'll have them right in the mix of things. What I find interesting about St. Mary's and Georgetown in particular is I think St. Mary's played three sims and Georgetown doesn't play any. So that's the beautiful thing about D1AA is you can play all sims. You don't have to have a strength of schedule. You're gonna win your conference and you're guaranteed into playoff, or you're gonna go undefeated and be high enough rank and make it into playoff either way. But you can also kind of hide your game plan until you get into playoffs. So it'll be interesting how that plays out. I personally like to play at least two humans in non-conference. I mean, I don't play this game to play a bunch of sims, and I'm not ragging on either of those coaches at all by their scheduling. Sometimes it's luck of the draw. Sometimes you couldn't get people. Georgetown's still rebuilding, so I totally understand it. But me personally, I like to schedule at least a couple humans. But those coaches will be able to hide their game plan a little bit, which is interesting. For me, St. Mary's, they need 11 guys. This is all if I counted correctly. For me, their biggest need looks like it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball, in particular their defensive line and their linebacker depth. UNI needs 12. Their two biggest needs to me were their running back and defensive back depth. Georgetown, I had they need 11, and I had that they would need wide receiver and defensive lineman depth. And then Texas Southern needs 14, which is the most of any of them. They need help at DB, and then they only have two quarterbacks on the roster, and a lot of people like to carry four. So we'll see if Mike C decides to go out and get two, or just carry three for a year and kind of be short-handed. Um, but with D1A not as full as it used to be, I think at one point in this world we were up to like 70 something at D1A and 50 plus at D1AA. That's when you had to really worry about where you were scouting and who you were going to have to battle. But it's not so bad now. I think right now our current numbers sit at 62 coaches in D1A and 37 in D1AA. And I mean, the middle of that country is open. There's not any D1AA teams there, but I mean, if you go and you scout some of those states in the middle, you're going to find players. You just got to work around it and not battle those D1As. You got anything else to say about D1AA at all, Coach?
The only thing I can think of is like what you just said last year is You, as much as there aren't a lot of D1AA coaches, you have to worry about the pressure that's coming from above from the D1A schools, the BCAs, and the mid majors. Because with that number of coaches there, at that level, everybody's going to end up dipping down into D1AA talent pool. So that's the only thing that I would say about D1AA recruiting.
Yeah, they do still seem to funnel down. Definitely, it's not as bad as it used to be, but you do see where you're kind of like, really, I got a BCS or a mid major on that kind of guy, and he was even maybe a backup for me. But they sometimes, out the gate, secure some easy guys for cheap, just in case they can't win battles. So let's talk real football here for just a second. We got the conference championships coming up this week. And Utah, Washington going right now. Currently, it looks like in the second quarter, tied at 0. Washington has the ball, 3rd and 7, trying to drive. Who are you predicting? Let's just do the Power Five conferences here. So Pac-12, it's going right now at 0-0. Who you got in that one, Utah or Washington?
Oh, easy, Washington.
I kind of agree there. I think the whole Pac-12 has been obviously overlooked since they're not even remotely getting a team into the playoff at this point. Um, Washington had a lot of expectations, so falling at 9-3, I was kind of surprised by that. But I agree. I think they should end up pulling that one out. How about the Big 12 championship tomorrow at 10 a.m.?
I'm sorry, my friend, but they won't be able to do it again, your boys. I have Oklahoma would take me down. It will be close. It will be within at least two scores.
I see, and I think that's where everyone's leaning. And obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I I I really think both teams are going to come out and pull out all the stops. I think we might see some interesting trick plays. If everyone can shut out this drama that this controversy we've got going outside of the game, I think it'll be a great game. I think both teams, they kind of play to each other's weakness in a way. So I do think my Horns are still going to pull it off. I do. I know I'm biased a little bit there too, but I do think that their defense will be able to make more stops than Oklahoma's defense is going to be able to. SEC championship at Alabama, Georgia.
I used to coach Georgia in Heisman a few seasons ago. I, I know this is going to be crazy. Safe money is on Alabama, but I'm going to go with the dogs.
Yeah, I don't see. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theory right here. I have is like, what if Georgia, Alabama purposely lost so that the SEC guaranteed two teams in, especially if like you get, Ohio State or Oklahoma loses, it's a given. But not saying it's going to happen by any means. I'm just like, what if? I'm going with Bama. I think they've just looked too consistent, too good. They either shut you down and only score 20 points, or they're going to score 40 if you score 15 or actually get on the board. So I think Alabama's just got too much going on. Georgia has gotten better and looks pretty good. I just don't think that they have enough to keep up. I think what'll be interesting is if Georgia loses and then if Oklahoma loses. What do you think a two-loss Georgia still gets in over Ohio State if they win?
Uh, Probably because that loss by Ohio State, it's out there and it's such a big loss for them. The point where they might have to still have the Bulldogs in, depending on how bad the loss is for the
Yeah, I
Bulldogs
think it
there.
depends how their loss looks, and I think it depends how Ohio State wins too. They're saying that's kind of dictating whether or not they're going to get in. While we're talking to the Buckeyes, who you got in the Big Ten championship?
Ah, Safe money, Buckeyes. I think they figured things out after that Michigan game. I think after that game, they now know what works best for them. I think they should be able to roll.
See, and my part of me wants to say that, but part of me knows how pesky Northwestern can be. It's also Ohio State playing a rival at their home turf with a chance to keep them out of the playoff. They're going to have so much emotion on the line in that game. Don't get me wrong, this is a Big Ten title, but you got to wonder how much they maybe have left in the tank after a game like that. Not saying they won't knock the wheels off of Northwestern, but I wouldn't be surprised here if Northwestern actually pulls off an upset. But I am kind of with you. I'm going to go with a safe bet here, and I am thinking Ohio State's going to win that one. And then the last one, real quick, Clemson Pittsburgh. I mean, is it even worth calling? Do you do you think that one will even
Nah,
be a game?
I don't think they should even. I don't think Pitt should even show up. They should just like say, you know what, you guys got it.
Yeah,
Go
I don't.
take care of business in the playoffs.
I'm kind of with you. I don't think it'd be close, but imagine the shakeup that would cause if they do. I mean, then you're talking about number two falling, number four losing but having two losses, number six winning but having, it's just crazy. And I think this playoff needs to be expanded, but we'll see. I'm not going to complain. We just got a playoff. At least it's better than the BCS, right?
That is true. But I think for now, let's if we should just keep it at four. That gives every game an extra bit of weight, extra bit of importance for you to try and go out and give your best and leave it all on the field. Because if we then expand it, then everybody is going to get in,
Yeah.
which makes me think of UCF. What if Georgia loses, Oklahoma loses, Ohio State loses? You have UCF sitting there, they go undefeated. Do you let them in?
Well, they're going to complain about it if they don't because they're the only undefeated team. Seeing them on paper, I think they're great. I do. I think Herbstreit or somebody said it. Outside the top, well, he's at the time Michigan is the top four. Outside that top four, he said they could play anyone. 5 through 10. I think they could even hang probably with Ohio State. But Clemson, Alabama, and probably Georgia, I would think would roll UCF. But yeah, and I don't think they'd get in. There's no way they'd let them cross Georgia with even with 2 losses, with how tough the SEC is and how many ranked teams they've had to go through and things. I don't think they'd let that happen. But it
Yeah,
would be interesting if they all lose. I don't. I don't like to try to predict all that kind of stuff just because we have enough drama as it is with the way things go. I mean, look at the Big 12 championship. They can't even talk about whether they can't even decide whether or not they're going to let Texas do horns up and Oklahoma do horns down and crazy stuff like that.
that's a whole lot of nonsense. Everybody should do whatever they want. Horns up, horns down, no horns. Everybody has horns. Come on now, let's just play some football.
Right. All right. I agree with you. All right, Husker fan. Till next time. And also, real quick note on the show: we're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna have like a rigid schedule with this. Other than maybe like postseason kind of a show, we might kind of keep that one a consistency. But otherwise, we're kind of gonna do this as time allows. Try not to burn ourselves out and keep this thing going. Any last words, Husker fan?
Stay out of Tennessee, stay out of Georgia, South Carolina. You know what? Stay out of every state that is within my 360. And, we'll be good.
Yeah, it's only like half of the country. No big deal.
Hey, stay out.
All right, guys. Talk to y'all later.
I take it easy.